Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, a very nice win in Detroit, plus why the conversation around the Suns goes deeper than just add or blow it up. Next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen to kick off your Monday. Don't forget, Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button and do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Now's the perfect time to join. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. No need to win to get that bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Joining me as always from the Wild West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we feeling on this game day Monday? Ben Garcia.
Like 1,000 times better than what I felt the last time we were doing this, which was the Suns beating up on the Wizards. Nick Richards, addition by addition. We figured out what the issue was with the Suns. It was Josh Okogie. 2-0 since he's been gone. The clear locker room cancer. We figured it out. Okogie out. It wasn't Nurkic. It wasn't Plumlee. It was clearly Josh Okogie. So I'm happy we figured that out after all these months. So it's good to be back.
I mean, he did join the team right before things got ugly. So, yeah, it's all J.O.'s fault. That's definitely
all Josh Okogie's fault. How dare he hustle for a rebound?
Yeah. How dare he be like the only guy that consistently brought energy? He's definitely the problem.
Exactly.
All right, let's get to this win, which was another big game from Book and KD, as well as the debut of Nick Richards, and a solid win. And so we'll talk through all of that. We'll also close out with some comments from around the NBA world that I think kind of are good use to be on your mind as the Suns get through this trade deadline season, when we hear about, really big fish that they might want to get, or whether they should even be adding at all, why it's not so black and white. So we'll talk through that as we move on. But Ben, 125-121 in Detroit. Suns took care of business, gave the team a nice, W on their way over to Ford Field, where they could watch Commanders-Lions as a group, which was cool.
That was cool.
It was. Colin Gillespie showed up. Everybody got to go.
When I saw Booker's suite, because they split up. KD was in another suite and Booker was in a different one, and I saw Colin Gillespie. I was like, "What are you doing there?" All right, cool.
I kind of respect them being separate though, because I can't be around the opposing. I can't hang out with an opposing fan. I mean, I haven't had a lot of great Cardinals moments that I really can even reference, so maybe I have no idea what I'm even talking about when it comes to this, but I'll say from a Sun standpoint, if I was sitting there with the Mavs fan, Game 7, I would have probably become violent, so I get it. But I think, honestly, the way we maybe can talk about this game is just with the end of it, because I think that speaks to the continued chemistry and connection that Booker and KD have had lately, as well as the personnel side of it, where Tyus Jones was on the bench to close a game once again, and Nick Richards, of course, was in there, showing the impact that he can have for this team. So that group, which was, it kind of switched out here and there, but primarily the Booker, Durant, Dunn, Grayson, and Richards. What did you think of how they kind of closed out this game and got a win that honestly could have gone either way down to the wire?
Well, it could have gone either way. The Suns were favored by 1 going into this game, and it was a road game where Nick Richards was coming in and into his first game. And, man, it's one game. And I saw a lot of Suns fans taking a victory lap after one game where it's Nick Richards looked really good and he's so much better than Plumlee and Nurkic. Listen, I don't know. Maybe he is. But from what I saw yesterday, just energy off the glass, being able to convert on dunks. He had a really nice and one in this game. He had a double-double, 20 points, 11 boards. He was 7 foot, took advantage of what is kind of a smaller Pistons lineup, but not a bad Pistons front court. It's still probably better when you line them all up better than the Suns. But I guess what you're really getting to is towards the end, where this team needs to lean into getting at the end of games, not being so small to where it just doesn't work. Before it was the death lineup of O'Neal, Dunn, Booker, Beal, KD. But now you can add Nick Richards into that. So if it's Nick Richards, it's Dunn, it's KD. You know, man, I think there's a really good argument to add Bradley Beal back to the starting lineup and send Tyus Jones back to the bench. But those are things where you added Tyus Jones into this mixture because you gave him a guarantee that he would start. So it was eye-opening, man. It's eye-opening to see how much you have to fizzle out Tyus Jones because he's giving up buckets on one end and there's too much firepower on this team in the later games where Booker and KD are dropping 70 points combined where he's just not needed. So that's what I kind of got from it. But I did like your tweet that said a sign of things to come. What did you think?
Yeah, I think I saw it a lot of the same way. I think that it just adds needed size. It's interesting that Royce's minutes have kind of dwindled lately, so that's another kind of component of this. And it's just going to be natural when his shot's not falling. He's been a little loose with the ball lately. That stuff's going to happen, but I don't think it's a coincidence that Dunn stepping up has made Royce a little bit less necessary and has also made just more lineups work in general where, you know, especially what I think the other big thing just in how they won this game that jumped out to me, Ben, is you mentioned it with Nick Richards. I think he provided everything that they needed. I thought the rebounding and the offensive rebounding in particular was massive. There were a lot of possessions even in this fourth quarter that they got multiple shots on, which just is a breath of fresh air. We just haven't seen that in years. But it was also them scoring in the paint, and Dunn was a big part of that. This team had 60 points in the paint in this game, the Suns did, and they allowed 60, which, you know, is kind of another story. But Detroit is a team that does that. You know, Cade Cunningham can get into the teeth of the defense. You mentioned they have a few centers who are pretty decent. The Suns are 28th in the NBA in points per game. The Pistons are 12th. So playing them to a draw in that category is huge. Richards was a part of that. Dunn with just he's improving as a roll man. He's improving as a cutter. He just kind of moves around in space and has a knack of just being in a position to score the ball around the basket more often than not. But where I'm going with all of this is Kevin Durant did it in this game. And that was what was awesome to see, where he had a pretty bad start to this game, just went cold. It happens. And he's one of the best ever at not allowing that to blow out of proportion into a bad game. He can have a bad quarter and still have a good game. And that's exactly what he did. But just quickly looking at it, I think he had 10 or 11 field goal attempts in the paint in this game. That's not what Durant's shot diet has typically been, but when you have that lob threat, that guy in the dunker spot, you have the spacing that you now can put out there more often when you don't have to have, you know, a Yusuf Nurkic or a, you know, whatever, it just goes a long way. And so I think it's not a coincidence either that Durant was able to score in a more efficient way because of the lineup that was out there around him.
I would be curious to what you would think, or I guess how you would digest or think this, but I'm not ready to subscribe into this idea that Nick Richards is going to be the savior for the Suns, although some Nick Richards fans are taking a victory lap. Did yesterday make you think, like, wait a second, was our front court so bad where even I thought it was better? Because even I was like, it's better than even I think. But Nick Richards wasn't necessarily making tough shots outside of the 1-and-1. He was just rolling to the basket. He was finishing around the rim. Do you think that is a sign of actual things to come? Like, do you think what we got yesterday is closer to the Nick Richards we're going to get on a night in and night out basis, or probably more of like a statistical anomaly?
Well, I mean, statistical anomaly probably. Like, is he going to be 20 and 10 every night? I think that'd be crazy to expect in 30 minutes. But still, the statistic I don't think is an anomaly, and the value that really got shown was Mason Plumlee in 13 minutes. The Suns got outscored by 10. When Oso was out there for 5 minutes, the Suns got outscored by 9.
Ooh.
When Richards was out there for 29, the Suns won those minutes by 22. And that part, I think, is going to continue to be a pattern. I think that his rebounding in particular, if nothing else, is going to go a long, long way toward the Suns just being more physically competitive in games.
Do you think, we saw the Gambo tweet of once he gets acclimated to this team that he'll start? Yeah. Do you just start him on Monday against the Cavs?
Monday, I think, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Especially
I was in the same...
It's the Cavs. They're huge. You kind of got to
Mobley,
do that move.
Yeah. You absolutely have to. Really quickly, it also just kind of felt like, Plumlee minus 13. He wasn't great in this game, but it did felt like when he was not running out there with the first unit that he wasn't awful. And maybe that just goes to show the Band-Aid that was stuck on Nick Richards in the center position. But I don't know, man. It did feel like Plumlee wasn't so much of a sore thumb, and maybe that's because he's not playing as much anymore. And Oso Ighodaro as well, but I think very soon here we're going to switch to the Richards, Oso, Mason, Nurkic, and Alcatraz rotation of the front court. So it was really promising, man. I would have had no hope going into this game on Monday against the Cavs, which is in the middle of the day, which is awesome for people like me who have to work, but I would go into this game thinking no hope. I'm like, let's see what we can do. We've only seen one game of this new look Suns lineup, so maybe they can pull something out. And if they do, that's when we're going to talk about, wait a second, is Nick Richards actually the answer for this team? So hope that we haven't had in a long time, man.
Hope and whether Nick Richards are the savior and kind of what this Cavs game can mean. I think this all speaks to the feeling that Suns fans have right now, which is a lot of like game by game. What is going on? Are we back? Are we not back? What is happening here? And I think that leads us to the other portion of our conversation, which is how the Suns themselves are looking at this team right now, how fans are looking at this team for the rest of the season, but also into the future, and how this deadline can kind of be a bridge to that future that doesn't have to be all in or nothing. We'll talk about that next. First, today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get real money action while watching your favorite NBA stars than with Prize Picks. Whether you're a diehard fan or just love some friendly competition, Prize Picks makes it fun and easy to turn your basketball knowledge into cash. Here's how it works. Pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Maybe on Monday you think, hey, they don't have anybody to guard Book. He's going for 30 again, just like he has been. And maybe you say, all right, I'm a little nervous about Jared Allen against the Suns front line. And maybe you go more on his rebounds. Well, there you go. That's it. Prize Picks lets you make your predictions and put your money where your mouth is in just 60 seconds. We all love Prize Picks here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are all hoops junkies. And the best part is, if you are a hoops junkie, if you love basketball, it's just you versus your own brain and those Prize Picks player projections. There's no leagues, there's no pools, there's no head-to-head stuff you got to worry about. If you get it right, you get the money. Now's the perfect time to join. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. No need to win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, Ben, let's jump to a little bit of a bigger picture conversation. Fun to do sometimes on a weekend show where we don't have to just plug into a game or some report or rumor or trade and zoom out a little bit. So this was from Bill Simmons on his podcast on, I believe it was Wednesday, where he was going through all the power rankings of the league, and he was crapping on the Beal trade again and all this sort of stuff, which we're not going to focus on his analysis of the team because we have our own analysis of the team. But the part that was a little bit more of like an intel was at the very end of his rant, where he said, the Suns are kind of like the guy in your fantasy league who texts you and tries to trade DeAndre Swift for Brock Bowers. And you're like, just stop, dude. He said nobody wants Beal. There's nobody who wants Nurkic. He referenced like a Vucevic trade, which I don't think he was actually reporting. He was just giving an example. He said, stop, it's not happening. The whole league is annoyed by the Suns. It's a really important point, he said. Everyone in the league is like, Ishbia is just on a bender, and this team is insane, and stop calling us. What is your response when you hear somebody plugged in like that, saying that this whole second apron, upgrade the team at all costs, go all in mentality is starting to rub some other NBA teams the wrong way, Ben?
I mean, I think I should start like this. I don't really believe Bill Simmons that much. It feels like he heard this directly from the Miami Heat and then found one other team that agreed. I don't know who it would be, but whatever, someone out there, the Trailblazers maybe, because they want, Reith or whatever. It's kind of like the Dodgers thing. Everyone's really upset with the Dodgers spending a ton of money on everyone under the sun, but like you can be annoyed by them, but they're operating in what is the legal amount of money you can spend, which is whatever you want. We're just going to make it kind of difficult on you. Whereas the Dodgers is a little bit different because you don't have to do anything. But yeah, I don't think teams are actually annoyed. I think that they're more like, wow, that team is stupid, from the outside in, not necessarily just because to outsiders, it's why do you keep digging yourself a bigger hole? And even I've made that argument at times with this team, but the Suns are continuously trying to make this team better, which I think is attractive to players and maybe not so much good with owners who get upset because they don't want to spend that much money. I don't know, man. That's what I kind of got from it. I don't know how much of Bill Simmons is actually telling the truth, and some of it is more theatrics than anything. But what did you get from that?
Yeah, I think your point about, well, my read on it was, yeah, it's Bill Simmons, and he didn't try to pretend like he's giving you a report, right? So, who knows exactly where it came from or what. But I think that, the part of what you said that I think is the true part is that teams are kind of annoyed maybe thinking that they're dumb and whatever. But the part where that intersects with something that I think might actually have some reality in it is them doing that, it not working. And then where it does kind of get into the Butler saga of this whole thing is now the Suns are getting desperate, and whether it's the Nurkic contract, the Beal situation, just their need to improve the team, period, the Suns are kind of in this position where, and we've been talking about it as all this has unfolded, they kind of need almost like a favor in order to get some of this stuff done. And that is a little bit of where I think teams might be put off, where it's like, you did this to yourselves. We're not taking Yusuf Nurkic just because you ruined your relationship with DeAndre Ayton and had all these rules about trades, so you had to force yourself into something with Portland that wasn't perfect. Why are we going to help you out by taking a dude who got suspended already, who's in a DNP now, who, got punched by Draymond Green and is playing terrible basketball, just so you can, make your fans happy with something besides hot dogs? Right? So that's where I could see some of it getting teams being actually involved in a way that makes them mad rather than just looking at it from afar and laughing at them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, are the Suns maybe making more calls to try to facilitate a Butler trade to 5 or 6 teams being like, hey, what would you be able to get? I think those teams are upset because all of them that are saying, yeah, we'll help you out, but you got to ask, I don't know, the Trailblazers if they'll do this, and they're going to them, and the Trailblazers are saying no unless you get this from the Pistons. And all of those teams are saying, listen, this is not going to happen. Please stop with this. You made your bed. Now you're lying in it. I do think, though, that the whole, whatever it is, Butler or spending too much or whatever, I think it more so is just angers other owners because no other owner wants to be seen or perceived as cheap, especially with all the money they make. And with Ishbia, he's out there spending all this money, and I don't think teams are upset. I think more so it's owners that are shying away from the second apron, i.e. the Timberwolves with guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker or the Nuggets with KCP, where the Suns are like, whatever, we're just going to keep spending because we don't care. We print money here. I think that's what frustrates owners because it gives them a bad look. But I don't think GMs and stuff really care because everyone has taken the Suns to the woodshed recently with trades, at least getting more than you probably thought they should have. And with that being said, I mean, why not? Why wouldn't you want to do business? Who doesn't want that 2031 pick for, I don't know, Robert Williams if it's protected or something like that? I'm just throwing something out there.
I think GMs, I think that's a great point. GMs just get the job, right? Like they know the job is to do the best with what you got and fulfill the wishes of your owner. That's just sort of the game. They all freaking switch jobs every 5 years anyway. Who cares? They're not going to hold some kind of ill will unless James Jones is handling himself like a jerk, but he's not. So that's not really what's going on here.
I'm sure it's Ishbia making the calls anyways.
I think you had a point too, though, as we were reacting to this when it first came out, Ben, that this, I think, illustrates something very different than what some Suns fans feel about the level of action around the deadline, where some Suns fans are feeling like there's not enough happening. This is almost the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, I think something that maybe I struggle with more than you do is taking social media for face value. And because it's just so much outrage that it annoys me. And maybe we're a little bit at ends here, but I see a lot of before when the Nurkic Gerald Bourguet report came out that they weren't shopping Nurkic, which because no one wanted him is really what they were trying to say, but no one was shopping him. And there was a lot of this, well, the Suns aren't even trying. I don't want to hear anything about the Suns aren't trying to better this team anymore, especially when I hear that other teams are potentially annoyed with them with how much the Phoenix Suns are calling them. Don't perceive the Suns' lack of assets for lack of trying. And that was kind of the point I made a couple of weeks ago was
it's
too
much.
It kind of feels like they've only,
right?
Yeah, it almost feels like they've been trying way too much
for other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly kind of what I was kind of alluding to before, where now they could be pumping the brakes on trading that 2031 pick, which, by the way, is really confusing to me because I think if this season flails out, the person that's going to get the axe or the scapegoating is going to be James Jones. Like if I was him, I'd be shipping that pick out as fast as I could to keep my job because I don't think he's going to get another one very quickly. But yeah, I mean, the Suns are clearly trying, and I think it shows with the Nick Richards trade, which was perceived as a little bit of an overpay when you didn't even get off on a deal that like Nurkic that you wanted to. But yeah, I think the Suns are doing everything they can.
Both can't be true, right? They can't be bothering everybody and not
trying.
And that was even our reaction to that Nurkic report in the first place. Like, separate from getting mad about the level of effort or anything else, it's just like they're saying that to do damage control, and they're saying that because there's no sense in broadcasting that you're trying to ship off one of your players. It's the same way that they've handled the Beal situation. And you can take issues with that if you want, but the fact that that came out is not evidence. I just listened to the Kevin O'Connor podcast on Yahoo as I was driving home just now, and he said the same thing. He said the Suns have been trying to get rid of Yusuf Nurkic for months. That was his verbatim quote. So, I think the other part of this, though, is being all in. And this is another place that I think you and I have kind of debated over the course of this season. Being all in means different things at different times. And it can go from that you should be all in to suddenly maybe you got to pull back a little bit. And Kevin Durant had some comments that there were too many games to get to a while ago, but it fits really well. And I think with what Bill Simmons is saying and kind of the temperature check we're doing here about Suns fans and this team ahead of the deadline, we'll play his comments and react to them next. First, today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Unfortunately, by the time many of you are listening to this, the NFL divisional round will be long gone. So I will take you back into the world of college basketball, which is my favorite place to get that bonus bet, of course, where on Monday night, we don't have lines yet. Let's see. Here's the safe one. The Chiefs showed you that Travis Kelce has awoken. do a touchdown bet for Travis Kelce. You'll probably get your bonus bet there, but you don't even have to win because right now you're getting that $300 no matter what. So make the NFL season and the playoffs unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Closing out the show, don't forget to sign up for the Locked On Suns daily newsletter at LockedOnDaily.com. Awesome content across the wide world of basketball, fantasy, NBA, Suns. Keep up with the show, support the show, and best of all, for you, it's free. All right, Ben. So Kevin Durant spoke at practice a little while ago about when the Butler stuff was kind of at a high point and Beal was, reacting to it and the team was struggling and all this stuff was kind of swirling about this idea of the second apron and the limitations that the Suns are facing and all this sort of stuff. So let's play the clip about KD's perspective on this and why it's not just all in or not. And there is that middle ground and how he sees the Suns navigating that middle ground. And then we can talk through kind of what that means for the next 3 weeks.
You came in with Ishmael. What do you think of the...
Came in where, here?
Yeah, here. Right after he bought the team, they made the deal for you. What do you think of the evaluation, your evaluation of the evolution of the franchise since you guys have been here?
I think the franchise has grown. I mean, the league has grown. The franchise has grown. I think we got more fans that watch us play. I mean, we didn't win a championship. I know that's where, that's the main goal. But I mean, people in the building, people within the organization can kind of see those small wins that we've accomplished up until this time, trying to build our identity. So I feel like it's been sweet thus far. I think we're progressing and trying to figure things out. What you think?
It's a long story.
Tell me. I got time.
I think you're still recovering from the debacle with Sarver.
What does that mean?
The franchise went in a weird direction, during that period of time.
So what are you trying to say? So what does that mean for us right now? What you saying? Would that mean something to us right now?
I think with, the way the salary structure is in the NBA now and, the CBA, you have a top-heavy organization. Salary-wise, it's hard to balance everything out. It made a lot of deals in the middle of this to try and, win the championship, which is what you're saying. And if you don't, now you're kind of stuck. But it all began in that era to get to here.
I mean, sometimes trying is, sometimes you got to try to see, try to figure out where you want to go, So sometimes it might not always work out perfectly the way you set it up or the way you envision. But some people, trying is better than not doing nothing at all, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So yeah, you good. Some people, it depends on who you look at, who you talk to, perspective may be different. So, I appreciate people that want to put in the work to try to get on that road to championship level. Right? It's hard, as we're seeing.
All right. So there was a lot there.
Such a good bite. Such a good bite.
Yeah, it's great. And I wanted to come back to it because I think a lot of these star players, KD's not accidentally saying these things. And I also don't think that, just like Matt Ishbia can decide one day, maybe, oh crap, I actually don't want to send out the 2031 pick. This doesn't mean KD has to hold this perspective for the rest of time. But I do think that it's interesting that in the middle of such a down stretch of the season, he was able to kind of zoom out. It's very different than how he's spoken when things got tough in Golden State, for instance, or Brooklyn, where he was pretty open that, things aren't great right now. He's been vocal when he's not happy just as much as he has when he is, and he's being very positive here. And I think it speaks to the kind of perspective that I've seen some more positive Suns fans been pushed back on the negative ones with recently, and even sometimes in our comments or in my replies on Twitter, where it's like, Matt Ishbia is willing to spend money. This market is desirable. At least for now, they have superstar players that even a Jimmy Butler wants to come to a 500 team that has terrible vibes. Yeah, okay, he's going to get paid here, but he was going to get paid with the Grizzlies. He doesn't want to go to the Grizzlies. He wants to come here. And so how do you think about the future outlook of this team with all of that in mind, heading toward a season where I think we all know if things don't go well right now, there's going to be some hard decisions?
Well, I mean, listen, the Jimmy Butler thing is a really good thing to point to, because you and I have said ad nauseum, why does this guy want to come here? It's a train wreck right now. Listen, having a good owner is like 3/4 of the battle, and being able to have a guy that is willing to spend the money. Like, the Jimmy Butler thing is really good because you said, well, Memphis said they'll pay him and he's not willing to go there. Well, I think it's more so about, is Memphis willing to go all in? Will they trade all their picks? And also, it's a desirable location being here in Phoenix. Matt Ishbia has done nothing but, and I want to say this even louder for some people in the back, is Matt Ishbia has done nothing but try to elevate this team. It goes to show you how many Suns fans did jump on the bandwagon, which is totally okay. Back in 2021, when they made the NBA Finals, when Matt Ishbia was not the owner or governor of this team. Having it with Robert Sarver when I was a kid and letting Amari Stoudemire walk, or having to trade Sean Marion, or having to trade Joe Johnson, like, those are things that we dealt with on a yearly basis. You think Joe Johnson leaves if Matt Ishbia is here? Or you think Sean Marion gets upset with ownership? Now, Amari maybe still does because of his knee issues that they were worried about, but
yeah, Sarver was honestly low-key right on that one. Like,
he was.
It was
That's
cheap,
what,
but like, he was right.
he was right. He was right on that one. But the other two guys, like, that wouldn't have happened. You'd be, a lot of people think, like, listen, Suns probably win a championship if Joe Johnson doesn't not get paid and has to be moved to the Hawks. But
yeah,
I'm all in support of Ishbia, man, and I like that. I think it also is a telltale sign of how Kevin Durant still hasn't asked to be out of here yet. Where I do think if Butler does come here, I think that also makes players on this team want to help out ownership for helping out the team, where I do see a world where Kevin Durant could take less to ensure Jimmy Butler signs and stays here. So
yeah, maybe.
It's a loaded question, but yeah, I think so. I think something like that would happen. Absolutely. I mean, LeBron did with the Lakers. He took $1 million less to stand under the second apron. Like, now, I mean, it's $1 million, but still.
Sure. No, I get you. I think what you, I mean, not to point to the obvious example that's going to get overused in the next few years, but Jalen Brunson did the same, right? Like, yeah. I think that happens, but yeah. I
bet he regrets that.
I think, look, like, it's not a surprise that a player would have this perspective, right? Like, players in this era, that's all they've wanted. Which, when they've, been able to kind of have more influence over teams and everything, is go get other star players who I get along with and like. And don't get me wrong, there is an element of Ishbia, Jones, Bartlestein, any front office that is in this situation. Sometimes continuing to go all in is actually not the right thing. So, again, this stuff can change. I'm not trying to sit here and make this an advertisement that everything's perfect in Phoenix, but broader than that, like, I think what drives me crazy, and what I got out of listening to KD, what he kind of opened my mind to a little bit more there, was we can pretend like we know what a reset or rebuild looks like, but we do not, right? We don't. Oklahoma City, we all were, drooling over how many picks they had. And guess what? They rebuilt with only their own picks and the one guy they got back for Paul George. That's their team. None of the players, Jalen Williams, whatever, none of those guys are accumulated from other teams. They just drafted really well. And here they are, much faster than anyone would have predicted, right? Like, it's just the Timberwolves. All of a sudden you hit on Anthony Edwards, and that's all you need. Even the Nets, when they were in purgatory, having given everything up for Pierce and Garnett, they got competitive pretty quickly and proved that with a good coach and some, good value signings and good draft picks, they were able to, attract Kyrie and KD much faster than anyone would have thought. What, like 5 years after they had,
James
got
Harden
rid
too.
of those guys. Yeah, and Harden. So I just think, like, that's been one of the things that I think has been really overstated, is the bleakness of if they do have to reset or rebuild. And I don't even want to get into specifics, but when you have multiple star players, a willingness to spend, GM and president and owner who have shown the ability to get the job done, an attractive market, and things like that, like, this idea that the Suns are on the verge of cratering into this hopeless, like, pit of doom.
Wasteland.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's dumb, and it to me is like so overly negative. And I think Suns fans are right to push back on some of that and say, no, we already saw that. And it comes when you have, like you said, an owner is at least 3/4 of this whole thing, and the Suns have that. So some optimism to close out the show.
Well, also, the one thing that you'd mentioned that we had talked about 2 shows ago, I think, is what really speeds up a rebuild? Getting lucky and drafting a really good guy. Ryan Dunn, again, last night was really good. If he's a star player, which is a huge if, but like if he's a star player, or heck, if he's a 3 on a championship winning team, the rebuild ain't going to take that long. It really is not. Maybe a year, maybe 2 to really get back into championship contention, because then you can flip Beal because it'll be an expiring deal, a really valuable expiring deal at that, at $50 million. So it's not going to be as long as people think it is. And also, like, we have Ishbia. Like, I can't believe there are some people out there like Ishbia's ruined this team. Has he made some missteps? Yeah, he's a new owner, but I would much rather this. Not even close. They're not even in the same stratosphere of being with Sarver. I will never have to worry about again if the Suns will keep a star player because their owner is cheap. I already have to worry about that with the Diamondbacks and the Cardinals. I don't have to worry about that anymore with the Suns. So it's pretty great.
Yeah, last thing I'll say, it just as a point of comparison, like people want to compare it to the Nets with the Pearson Garnett trade, or some of these other teams that have been so screwed on giving up so much in order and then having to restart. When the Nets finally, when Pearson Garnett left and they went to Minnesota and they went to Washington, the Nets were restarting with none of their picks, no young prospects, and their best player was Brook Lopez. The Suns would be restarting a rebuild. Yes, no picks, super screwed on the money side of things. The Beal contract will be hard to move. They have Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Ryan Dunn. Like that, it's just keep it in perspective is all that I'm saying. And I think KD was saying the same. That'll wrap us up. Hit follow, subscribe if you haven't already. We got content for you Monday through Friday. We'll be back on Monday night into Tuesday morning with a recap of Suns Cavs, a big test on this road trip. So keep it right here. Enjoy your Monday, and we'll talk to you then.